John Lyman, and I always look around. I know ChrisHorn's on there somewhere. There you are. Okay, hi. What we'll do is we'll start out with opening statements, and you have up to 5 minutes to just tell us anything you want. Tell us about yourself, your history, your position on things, whatever you want us to know. But you'll get 5 minutes each. And thereafter, it's open for questions. And I will call on people as they either raise their hand, or I'll try and look in the chats to see if there's a question in the chats. I will give you each 2 minutes to answer, and I will alternate who answers each question. And then at the end, near the end of the hour, I will give you we'll stop the questions, and I will give another 5 minutes each for you to wrap up and maybe finish questions you couldn't finish before, or clarify something, whatever. It's up to you. And in order to let you know when time is coming up, 30 seconds before the time is up, I hold this. 10 seconds, I hold up this. And then when it's time to stop, I hold up this. So unfortunately, you have to kind of keep an eye on my square, but that's the way it's going to work. And I usually start the opening with in alphabetical order. And Mr. Horn, you are alphabetically before Mr. Lyman. So you will go first with your opening statements, and Mr. Lyman will go first with his closing statements. Yeah, 5 minutes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Can everybody hear me? Okay, wonderful. So, hey, first of all, thank you guys for having us. And on behalf of the other candidates, thank you for having all of us. It's just a great opportunity to get out here just to meet folks and talk. I'll start with my background growing up. My parents were in the Air Force. Both of them served 27 and 24 years respectively. And so we moved every 4 or 5 years growing up. I was born in North Carolina, moved overseas to Japan, came back to North Carolina, finished high school in Illinois, and that's how I ended up at the University of Missouri in Columbia. So I got my math degree there. Shortly afterwards, I started working full-time at Shelter Insurance, spent the majority of my career with Shelter, moved a couple times with them as well. And yeah, so professionally, I work obviously insurance space, but specifically the reinsurance space. And that's what I've been doing professionally for the last since 2017. And so Columbia is the longest place that I've lived. So my wife and I moved here in 2017, and we've been here ever since, and we don't have plans on going anywhere. Speaking of my wife, Amanda, she works for Columbia Public Schools. She's a kindergarten and first grade teacher over at Ridgeway Elementary. And we have 3 kids, 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So when I'm not doing board work, or when I'm not working, I'm spending time with them, and it's a joy. Why am I here? And so, I had the opportunity to run 3 years ago, and had the privilege and honor of serving for these past 3 years on the Columbia Public School Board. And I mean those 2 words endearingly, privilege and honor. It really is a privilege and honor to represent the voices of the folks in our community as best as we can when it comes to administering education in Columbia Public Schools. And I use those words intentionally as well, because as a board member and as a board, that is what we were elected to do. We were elected to govern this district and represent the voices of those that put us in those seats. And that's why I want to come back. I think that on our board, we can really use some continuity. So after April 4th, at best, we'll have 2 board members who are in their 2nd term, and everybody else will be in their 1st term. And so continuity and stability are going to be critical for our district. And stability is always critical for our district if we're thinking about it, particularly from a governing perspective. And so, stability, continuity, and governance are the reasons why I'm doing this again. When I first ran, I really wanted to represent educators, or support educators, I really wanted to make sure we continue to push diversity, equity, and inclusion until inclusion became the norm. And I really had this grand idea of, really expanding and building out more robust early childhood education systems. And so I still believe in those things. And at the end of the day, my ultimate goal through all this service is to close that gap between to close that false notion, false narrative of certain schools in our community being better than others. That's my ultimate aim here in this service. And so, um, I'm sure there are going to be some questions regarding specific positions and statements. Can't wait to hear those. I really enjoy engaging in particularly tough questions. But the last thing I'll say with regard to the service and when it comes to any particular topics or issues that come before the board is I look at each topic in its individual context. And so when it comes to voting and trying to represent voices, I invite a lot of nuance into these complex issues that come before us. And I think that's what people want us to do. I think people want us to put the interests of the district and subsequently the community above our own individual interests. And that's what I'd love to be able to do for the next 3 years.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Lyman, it's your turn now.
All right. Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is John Lyman. Thank you guys for having us. I'll echo what Chris said. Thank you for putting this on with 7 candidates. Thank goodness technology exists for us to be able to, get together like this and have these things, record them, get them out to everybody. So thank you for that. Yeah, we moved to Columbia in 1986 when my dad got a job at the university. Was born in Washington State, lived in Corvallis, Oregon for a little bit before we moved here. So I'm a CPS kid. I'm a product of the district. I graduated from Rockbridge High School in 1998. Mizzou was the only school that I even remotely considered going to. No other schools existed for me outside of Mizzou. So went to Mizzou, got a degree in geography with a minor in history. Thought very hard about going to Oregon State for grad school, but then as most stories go, I met a girl and stayed in Columbia. We got married. We've got 3 kids. My wife, Molly, she's a teacher in the district. She's been teaching in the district for 18 years in our elementary schools. She's been coaching the Hickman High School cheer team for 20 years. We've got 3 kids in the district, a freshman in high school, which is weird to think about, a middle schooler, and then an elementary school student. So we've got them all across the board. I work at Veterans United, like almost half of Columbia, but I've been there for 17 and a half years. I'm a senior loan officer there now. My big kind of flag that I like to raise working at VU is I helped start up our Lighthouse program, the free credit repair division there. Me and a couple other guys started that up. Really proud of what that's become and what we're able to do there, helping our veterans get their credit scores to a position where they can purchase. So that really, really proud of what we were able to do with that. Outside of work, if I'm not up at one of the kids' schools doing something or helping something, I've been coaching my son's CYBA basketball team for the last 4 years. He has started to play lacrosse now, which I know nothing about, so I'm not able to help him out too much there, which is good then. He's my oldest daughter's does the Girl Scout thing. My son does the scouting BSA thing that I was in when growing up here in town. So that makes me very excited. If you could see behind me, you'd see all of our camping gear spread out, still drying out from last weekend, I think. So, rain or shine, the scouts are going to be out. I love all the outdoor stuff, anything outside. I love to do. So it's nice and sunny outside today. Hope to get outside a little bit, but running for school board for a variety of reasons. My wife being a teacher has really shown me a lot. My kids all being in school has shown me a lot. One of the things that we've seen over the last decade, especially over the last 2 years in our country, is a lot of division, a lot of divisiveness, a lot of we can agree on 99 things, but then we find the one thing we don't agree on, and now we can't talk or be friends or be family anymore. I don't like that. I'm big on talking to people, especially those that think differently than me. I want to bring everybody back to the table. I want to get everybody sitting down and talking. I want to make sure that all of our folks in town we all want to see the district continue to do well. And so we've got to get everybody back to the table and talking. That's a big part of things. I was always the kid in school who got the talks too much in class note on their grade card. And as such, my children are all getting that now as well. But, that's what I like to do. I like talking to people and meeting people and hearing new ideas. That's what I hope to bring to this adventure, to this school project, that really what we're doing. My campaign slogan is forward together. That's what I want to do. I want to continue to move us forward, and we have to do it together. That's a big, big thing for me. I want to continue to celebrate the diversity of our town. A lot of people come to Mizzou, or come to Columbia, from all over the world to go to Mizzou. They stay in Columbia because of how welcoming it is, our school systems. I want to continue to celebrate that diversity. I want to make sure that our schools are as equitable as possible. I went to Rockbridge. We knew, or everybody thought, what Rockbridge was. Everybody thought what Hickman was. We got to get past that. Every school in this district is great. I want to make sure that they're all getting that the same resources and the same, having those children have the same experiences. And then supporting our faculty and staff. We've heard time and time again, they're stressed. We got to do what we can to help them out, not just by pay, but anything else in the classroom we can help them out with. I want to help out with that, and look forward to talking with everybody today. Thank you.
You ended exactly at 5 minutes. Okay, I have a chat that Kathy Jensen will keep an eye out on the screen, and Sarah will keep an eye out on the chat. So I guess if there are a lot of chat questions, we can alternate. But are there any questions? And I'll let Catherine Jensen point out somebody.
Pam has her hand up.
Yes. What do you think of the spending priorities of the Columbia Public Schools, programs versus teacher pay?
Okay, and we'll start with Mr. Lyman.
So the pay question for me is always weird, and it might be for Chris too, because both of our wives are teachers, and so it's like, well, I think we'd always like teachers to get paid more. But I think that, the district is doing what they can, to ensure that teachers are paid, a fair wage to get on par with the rest of the state, with similarly sized districts. I would like to see a little bit more creativity in some of that. Teachers having to, especially in our Title I buildings, having to pay for a lot of school supplies on their own. Some not necessarily additional compensation there, but the opportunity to get reimbursed for those additional school expenses, to help out. That's going to help retain teachers in those buildings. I think that could potentially help bring new teachers in. It costs a lot of money to start up a classroom. And so anything that we can do there is going to be good. We got to look at cutting some spending, I think, here and there as well. I'm not sure how much these big studies have been. I feel like anecdotally, we've got a lot of that info from teachers already. Teachers kind of know what and where and who are having the most difficulties. The studies absolutely help. I'm not going to say that they don't. Teachers are giving us that qualitative data. We're getting that quantitatively then from those independent third parties. But a lot of times we're spending a lot of money, I think, on things that we may or may not be acting on. So if we're going to spend that money, let's make sure we're acting on it afterwards.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Horn.
Pam, thanks so much for this question. I love it. So the question is, what's the priority? If we had to choose, are we going to put money into educators, or are we going to put money into programs? And I'll give the same disclaimer that John just gave. I mentioned it in the opening. My wife does work for the district. My response has nothing to do with that. So at the end of the day, teachers are the most important people in our system next to kids. And so while I think programs are important, and I think one of the crown jewels of Columbia Public Schools is the number of opportunities that we offer our children. I think about when I went to high school and compared to what we give at our high schools, it's just not It's not even close. And so I love the things that we give to our kids in addition to our core instruction. That said, the reason why I would put funds into educators above programs is because one, we need educators to administer the programs, and two, quite frankly, we have to work on improving our access to all the opportunities that we give to our kids. So before we start, if we're going to make that choice, if we're forced with that choice, before we put any additional funds into programs, we've got to do much improvement on making sure that any of our programs and all of our programs are equitably and equally accessible to all of our kids.
Great. Is it okay if I interject one from the chat, Leslie?
Okay, yeah, it's time for a chat.
We've got Winifred Colwell. She asks, how do you think safety issues should be addressed? How do
Safety
you think
issues?
safety issues should be addressed?
Okay. All right, Mr. Horn, you're first on this one.
I appreciate this question as well. We can't educate in unsafe environments. It's a necessary ingredient. When we went through the pandemic, myself and the board were looking at things through a lens of safety. And I think we can all agree that we want all of our kids to be safe. And I think when we think about safety, we can easily jump to some worst case scenarios particularly as it pertains to physical safety for kids in buildings. Sure, we're talking about that. We're also talking about emotional safety and social safety. And so we want kids to be able to show up as their authentic selves without having to worry about without putting up any additional barriers to education. And so safety needs to be a number one priority. And we should never compromise on any sort of resources we put towards it, whether it be physical or otherwise. One thing that I'm really proud of in this district is the focus on safety. When I think about the cooperation between our school security personnel and CPD, for example, and the number of things that they do to prevent, and subsequently the number of things that they do in preparation to respond to, we're top notch. And so the only thing that I wish is we could speak more about it publicly, so that we can give more people comfort in knowing the position that we're in with regard to particularly the physical safety. When it comes to the social and emotional safety and things of the sort, we've got so many resources that are in place and continuing to look for additional ones. An example of that is the putting space inside of Battle High School for Borough to address some of our mental health needs. And so safety is paramount.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Lyman?
Yeah, this is a good question. I saw it pop up in the chat, and I was hoping it would get seen. My wife, first rule she has every year in her classroom is, or her first job is to keep all the kids safe. A safe classroom is a learning classroom. She can't teach if she doesn't feel safe. The kids can't learn if they don't feel safe. That's just, everything revolves around that. We can do all the other things, but if the kids aren't safe, that's a thing. The school board meeting this past week, there was a group of students that came and gave a presentation. Students for Change, I believe, is their group, and they were talking about some of the things that as students that they're doing to prepare what they feel the schools are in a need of, and that something eventually one day is going to happen. That thing that we see on the news that we're all terrified of seeing is going to happen one day in their schools, where someone's going to come in looking to do harm, and the preparations that our students are doing. And that's terrifying to me. That was a lot. I know that our school district has done everything that they can for that. I've been in PTA meetings across the district and just noticed things and talked about things to teachers and staff. And then building changes have been made. Hey, this door, we no longer go in or out of. It's, you have to come in this door to get into the building. The district is making the appropriate changes for that, for the physical safety of our students. mental health is another huge thing. We've got to continue to do more, not just for our students, but for our administrators, our staff, and our teachers, to make sure that they have what they need. Discipline is something that is huge in our public schools right now, and trying to figure out what to do, how to do it, etc. But safety, everything that we do has to be with that lens of keeping our kids and our students and our teachers safe.
You all right now? It's an in-person time for an in-person question. Any of them? Catherine, do you see anybody?
Yes, Kristen Bowen.
Oh, okay. What is your question?
Thank you. I'm going to piggyback on the last excellent question, and I really appreciate both of your answers. Gun safety is a top issue for me. It's a top issue in lots of elections and is becoming more of a conversation in school elections. And so I asked the same question last week. I wondered if you would both comment on how you see the school board having a role addressing gun violence in our community, just acknowledging that firearms are now the #1 leading cause of death for our kids in this country, and knowing that so many more firearms were purchased over the course of the pandemic and are in so many more homes where our kids do know where they are, and unintentional shootings and gun suicide are on the rise. So I just wonder if you would address those issues and how you see our school board addressing these questions and potentially addressing the problem of safe storage in our community.
Okay, I think it's time for, is it Mr. Lyman? Yes. Okay, Mr. Lyman?
Yeah. So after the Columbia Board of Realtors Forum here, what seems like ages ago, someone asked me this question, and I was like, man, that's a really good question. Specifically just about adding gun safety to our health curriculum. This is a crisis of sorts. I hunt. Turkey season's coming up. I'm amped for it. But one of the big things that, I do and make sure my wife knows is, where all of my stuff is in the house. And the kids know that that's dad's stuff. We don't mess with dad's stuff. But I understand that does not happen in a lot of our homes across the country. Making sure that kids know that, these are not toys, guns are not toys. They are tools. They, it's just irreversible things happen when accidents happen with firearms. And so making students aware, making kids aware of what's going on, what to do if they were to be at a friend's house and see one, be at a park and find one. Accidents are horrible. I've lost family members to gun accidents. And so making sure, getting that out there, including that as a part of our health curriculum. I don't know if it's even something as simple as having, getting with the Missouri Department of Conservation and having some of their guys come in who teach the hunter safety courses. The majority of that course is what to do, and more specifically, what to not do with firearms. Just simple things. My wife will never shoot a gun. She shot a gun before, but she will never hunt. I want her to take this course so that she knows what to do, what not to do. We've got to get that information out, make it a part of our health curriculum.
Hey, thank you. Mr. Horn?
Yes, Kristen, thank you so much for this question. So from a board perspective, I think there are at least four specific things that come to mind. The first thing is support the superintendent in his ventures and efforts to continue to find ways to secure our schools. That evolved technology that Students for Change talked about, Dr. Yearwood has been looking into that, and that's not cheap. And so, how can we prioritize that from a budgetary perspective? The second thing I think that we could do is, this is a good opportunity to increase that partnership. I think that one of the things that we have to focus on as educational system is partnering with parents. I say this, parents are in kids' lives forever. The educational system is in the kids' lives for a time. And so I say that to reinforce partnership and weave these conversations into that partnership. The third thing is to continue to elevate student voice. I don't know who else was there for the board meeting Monday, but hearing it straight from the kids is different. It makes it more real. It's sobering, and it just draws attention. It really does. And quite frankly, kids today, I feel like kids sometimes behave better than adults, and so to hear from them makes them more serious. The fourth thing is to include this under our board governance structure, and by this I mean partnering with our stakeholders both in Columbia and in Jeff City. So to bring that student voice, to bring those concerns to our legislators, say, hey, look, these are what our kids are telling us. This is not coming from me. This is what our kids are telling us. And so there's another opportunity to build bridges and to find solutions.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I don't think there are any chat questions right now. So are there any? I see that one of us, I think it's Carl, has a question.
It's actually me.
Oh, it's Mari. I couldn't tell by the palm of your hand whether it was male or female.
Oh, yeah. On this side. Oh, okay. Thanks. I have been reading some press accounts about the test scores, not only in Columbia, but all over the state, that purport to measure achievement in public schools. And I have to say that I'm really confused about what's going on with that. I understand the tests are different, plus this is like immediate post-pandemic. But I think that that's being used as ammunition by people who do not support public schools. And so I would just like to hear each of your take on what's really going on there and what, if anything, we need to do to address it.
Okay, Mr. Horn.
Marie, I love and appreciate this question. So specific to the annual performance report that just came out, that was for 21-22 school year, end of school year data. And it was based off MAP assessments. And so that information, be careful with my words here. So this stuff is not new. And so I think one of the silver linings in the pandemic is that people are paying attention to things that have been happening for a while. Columbia is not excluded from this, but we just historically in this state and other states as well, we just historically in our public education systems have not always served all of our kids well. And so what you're seeing in the recent data is a continuation and an exacerbation of that. So COVID did exacerbate things that were already happening. And so I think some positive things about it and what we're doing going forward is we're talking about it. The board supports Dr. Yearwood in his continued efforts to put out front so our community can see clearly where we are, and so we can understand how we got here, and so we can know where we're going. And so some of the positive things we're seeing with that, particularly with the use of assessments, we now have an approach and a continuous approach amongst all of our buildings. We're using the same assessments so we can measure where kids are at different points in time. So when we think about achievement information, remember those are lagging indicators. So we're proactively trying to understand where kids are and how we can address those. And we're seeing growth already. And so we're going in the right direction and we're doing so in a public manner.
All right, Mr. Lyman. There you are.
So, yep. One of the difficulties that I have with the reports are when the first line in the report is, hey, you can't compare this report or the numbers in it to last year's because we're using a different formula. It's, well, what is this telling me? It's giving me a snapshot. It's giving me where we were. It's not telling me where we are, but I have no idea if it is telling me what direction we're going in. I think we kind of know from previous reports and things that the, scores and proficiencies are not where they're supposed to be. but we're not really sure if we're getting better, if we're staying the same, if we're getting worse, because things continue to update, which is fine. I understand that we need to have that continual update of how we monitor and score things and grade things, but not just that change is something that frustrates me. It is concerning, though, that it does come out that the first thing that you see is everybody who has something against public schools for some reason, or wants public schools to change or to go away, use this as the flag to raise, to say, this is what, we need to just do the whole thing over, and we need charter schools, and we need all these other things. And I don't think it's that. I think that we are making good strides. I think a lot of the things that the district is starting to do are starting to help correct those things. Like Chris said, the pandemic was terrible, but one of the things that it did was it brought a lot of people out of the shadows. A lot more people are getting involved, families, parents, guardians, everybody's starting to look more and see what's happening. So I'm hopeful that these huge reports that we're getting, they're so detailed, they're so thorough, and everybody's starting to look at them and review them much more. We're going to get a plan, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to get everybody together to do that. I'm hopeful for where we're going.
Okay, thank you. All right. See here, David Robinson has a question, I think. The attacks on public education are alarming, and funding is constantly threatened. What are the most important things that the board, perhaps in cooperation with staff and administration, can do to regain public confidence in public education? Mr. Lyman? No.
So my kids still get an allowance when they do their chores, and we threaten them all the time to where if they don't do their chores, then they're not going to get their allowance, sort of thing. This feels the same. It's someone coming in trying to be mom or dad and saying, if you don't do this, then we're not going to pay you. And that's just not how we can. I could do that with my kids if they don't, do their, clean their room or vacuum. But we cannot be doing that with our public school system. I think that is it's scary that a community would hold or a government or an agency would hold the public school system hostage. Thousands and thousands of kids here that we're talking about withholding opportunity from. To regain that confidence, though, I think that there definitely needs to be much more visibility from the school district. I think that just getting out and being out more. I've toyed with the idea of, hey, it'd be neat if the superintendent did a State of the Union sort of thing every quarter or every semester publicly about the school district. Let's talk about the test scores. Let's talk about all of the things that are happening, the safety things, the new things that are happening, the good things that are happening in our district. Let's get that stuff out. When all we hear is the negative, it makes it really easy to maybe talk about, hey, we're going to withhold your allowance. But when you hear that maybe your room's not vacuumed because you were helping your sister clean up her room, then all right, we're going to give you a little bit more time there to get your job done. But I'd like to see, that public confidence grow just by being out there more. Let's show the schools, let's show the community, let's show the city, let's show the state the good things that we are doing.
Mr. Horn?
David, thanks so much for this question. Two things are always true. We can't control what other people are going to do, and we can always control our response to what people do. And so as a board, what we need to focus on is strong governance. And the reason why that's important is because right now, as it is, we spend more time responding to things that we're concerned about at the risk and the peril of doing the things that we're responsible for. And so when we don't take care of our responsibilities as a board, everything trickles down from there. And some of the things that we do in response, particularly to what's going on in Jeff City, is antagonistic. And I'm not saying that we don't advocate on behalf of our district. We should absolutely do that. That's one of our responsibilities. But at first, we have to make sure that we are serving our administrators and subsequently this community better by being better stewards of the positions that we hold and by governing well. That's the first thing that we need to do. The second thing that we need to do is to continue to support our administrators and our educators in their efforts to focus on improving achievement for our kids. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. And so I think part of this is, people want to respond to things that are happening right now. People want to prevent these continuous legislations and attacks on public education. And yeah, we want that to stop too. And I think the one of the best ways to do that is just to continue to get better. The more that we improve the achievement of our kids, the more that we improve the satisfactory and support for educators, the better that this district is going to be, and it mitigates and eliminates a number of things that they can try to attack us for.
All right, thank you. Let's see, I think I see two hands up, and both of them have already asked the question once, but Pam, you're the last one, the oldest one.
Back to the report, specifically, truancy was a problem. And what are we doing about that? And is there a truancy officer with the Columbia Public Schools?
Mr. Horn.
I want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. So when you're talking about truancy, you're talking about attendance, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Whether or not there's a truancy officer, I think that position is probably going to be more related to what our homeschool communicator officer, our homeschool communicators do. But yeah, attendance was a concern in 2022. And that's one of the plans, that's one of the portions of our CSIP. Specifically, one of our goals is to get kids to school. Why is that important? Because if kids are not in school, they can't get educated. And so, so on a positive note, looking at 2022 and compared to where we are this school year, we're already seeing improvements in attendance, but we're not where we need to be. And just so everybody knows, what we measure ourselves on in Columbia Public Schools is we want 90% of our kids to be at school 90% of the time. And so that's what we're chasing down, and that's what we're trying to get to. So in addition to attendance, we're also, part of that is making sure that we have appropriate discipline measures, and we can mitigate and eliminate the disparities in our discipline, particularly when it pertains to suspensions, and particularly as it pertains to our underserved population. And so, yeah, that is a big concern for us, Pam. And it is something that, Dr. Yearwood and this board is focused on, as evidenced by our continuous school improvement plan that we just initiated this year. And that's going to be a plan that we're going to execute over these next 5 years. And we're going to check in on it publicly. So for those that are interested in this and everything how the district is doing, the board is really focused on making sure, hey, how are we doing with regard to our continuous school improvement plan, including attendance?
Mr. Lyman.
Yeah, of everything that was in that report, the attendance part was definitely the part that stood out to me. That was I think it was 70% was in class 80% of the time, and we're shooting for 90 out of 90. And so that was definitely something that was a concern to me. Now, that particular school year was funky. This school year is funky in terms of we've got third graders that are in school for the first time really kind of ever. And so it's a cultural shift. It's a move to, get back to normalcy. We're still all trying to get back to normalcy, sort of thing. I think the district is doing a pretty good job in making sure that everybody likes to point a finger at busing and say, well, if the buses were better, then the kids would be in school. But from the sounds of it, Monday night at the school board meeting, STA, our busing company, 1% of their routes are canceled. Yes, there are some that are delayed or are have to be doubled up, but we're batting as close to 1,000 as you can get with busing and getting kids to school. We got to work with parents also. We got to continue to reinforce that being in building is important. We learned a lot that there were a lot of kids, we learned a lot during the pandemic that there were a lot of kids that did really well learning from home, learning on the iPad, but there is something to being in the building, having that those social experiences with our peers. That's a huge part of being in school. So we've got to do what we can to make sure that everyone understands that being in building is important. And it's absolutely, like I said, the thing in that report that I was like, that's where we can fix all these other problems if we can get kids in the buildings.
But neither one of you answered my question. What do you do if somebody isn't there for a week? Does somebody call and find out, or what?
Now we can give them another go at it, Mr. Lyman.
So, well, I think Chris is right in that I don't believe that there is that truancy officer traditionally that that kind of existed. I believe that it is the homeschool communicator. We're talking with my wife when she talks about there's a kid that hasn't been in her class in 3 or 4 weeks. iPads. I know that the district can turn those off. You can't log in. The district has the ability to shut off a student's iPad if they are not coming to school, because she's had parents come to school. Hey, my kid's iPad won't work. And the secretary's like, well, your kid hasn't been in school in a month. So there are ways to try to motivate, but there's no one that goes and knocks on a door. The homeschool communicator, I think, makes a lot of calls and does what they can, but physically going out, I don't know if that happens.
So Pam, I saw your face. Oh, you're on mute, Pam. I think you're trying to.
Is there a homeschool communicator for each school or just one for the district?
So there's not one for each school, but there are many throughout the schools. And so we have a staff of homeschool communicators that work throughout the schools. In addition to that work that they do, again, the educators are reaching out to parents. And something that the district started reinstituting this year are letters to parents. And so we have a system in place. So if a kid doesn't show up for X number of days, then certain communications will go out. And so yeah, the district is proactively reaching out to kids that are poorly attending.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
So I think there's a question in the chat now, and then I'll call on Carl after that. Or Mari.
Yeah. Alice posted in the chat. There are 5 on the ballot that she would be happy to see serve and only 3 openings. What potential consequences of so many good candidates? What are the potential consequences of so many good candidates when 2 very undesirable candidates are also on the ballot?
Okay, I think that it's who's first this time, Mr. Lyman. All right, Mr. Lyman.
Sure. I think it's awesome that there's this many people that are willing to, throw their hat in the ring and see what's going on and see what they can do. I think a lot of really good topics are getting brought up. A lot of really good ideas are getting, brought up. Is it concerning? Yes. I don't think that there's anyone who has been paying attention at all in the last couple of years about some of the folks that are running that, yeah, there are surely concerns. I'm hopeful, though, that our community is going to see through a lot of that. I think that, for the 5, that I'm pretty sure who you're referring to, I think the 5 of us are all like-minded enough that we're going to support each other in whatever happens, and we're going to continue to support the district and work with the district and do what we can to continue helping our students achieve and get what they need. And I also think our community is pretty smart. I've got some faith there that folks are going to start to look and see and think and say, hey, yeah, we're not okay with some of the stuff you guys are talking about. Yeah, you might be bringing up some good ideas, some good points, but there's no solutions to these points. That's what we need. We need solutions. We need to talk about what we're going to do, not to fix the problem, not just talk about what the problem is. Yeah, I think everybody's bringing up good points so far. I think that the next couple of weeks are really going to spread things out, though, in terms of who wants to do what.
Okay, I guess. Mr. Horn?
Great question, Alice. So what's at stake here are at least two things that jump out of my mind. One, well, three things actually. The first thing is there's a learning curve. Having served over these last 3 years, I mentioned one of the things I was thankful for with the pandemic. The other thing is accelerated learning. I don't know that I would have learned as quickly what it means to serve as a board member, subsequently as a board. And so there's a learning curve here. And so you match that with the sense of urgency with where we are coming out of the pandemic, with all the data that we've already talked about with regard to achievement. We've got to get this as right as possible. The second thing is, so what I would ask is, when people get elected and people have made certain promises or said particular thing in the midst of the campaign, groups don't forget. And so it clouds judgment with regard to making decisions above the board. I made a statement earlier about the importance of putting the interests of the district above the interests of our own. That is critically important in the work that you all are electing us folks to do. And so as we think about that, as you think about kind of who you're going to vote for, keep that in your mind. And then the third thing is again the governance. So there's learning what it is to be a school board member, and then that applies to what it is to govern. And we are 7 individuals, and not a single one of us has any authority to act in an individual capacity. And so it's going to be critically important that we all remember that, and that we all remember that we need to work as a team, again, in the interest of the district.
I'm looking at the time. It's about 10 till, and there are 2 hands raised on the screen. We're all caught up on the chat questions. So Leslie, I'm going to suggest we go ahead and field the 2 questions that are hands already raised, and then move on to the closing statements. Sound good?
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, Al and Mary Jo have a hand up, and they haven't asked a question yet. So how about you?
Okay. I keep hearing that teachers are unhappy. You both have teachers in your household. What are they unhappy about besides salary, and what can be done to kind of alleviate their concerns?
Okay, Mr. Horn.
Thanks for this question, Al. Quite frankly, I think that the majority of teachers are less unhappy about salary and more unhappy about feeling unsupported. So if we take a step back, going into this pandemic, teachers were heroes. Okay, teachers were heroes, and as we start to come out of the pandemic, student behaviors have changed. Public opinion about teachers, and particularly, unfortunately, teachers that are represented by unions, have changed, and that is tied as well to our political party using education as a means to further individual agendas. And so all that's happening. And on top of that, if we think about just Columbia Public Schools and some of the decisions that we've made as a board, they've been interpreted as putting financial resources towards other things that are not going directly towards the classroom. And so that feeds into the notion that, teachers aren't happy because they feel unsupported. They're getting, they don't feel as supported by their communities as they were a couple of years ago. And they don't feel supported by their administration because of decisions that have been made. And on top of that, we've got a new leader that's, pushing a lot of change that's challenging folks. And so there's a lot that's coming at teachers. And so that to me, Al, is why they feel they're unhappy. I think it has less to do with compensation than it does with support. What can we do? this again goes back. You're going to keep hearing me talk about this. The board has some accountability to this beyond the decisions that we've made as a board. The better that we can serve as a unit, that gives more opportunity to build more bridges with stakeholders, including educators, so that we can better communicate the decisions, the why we're making decisions that we're making. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Mr. Lyman.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you for asking. If you know a teacher, see a teacher, just tell them they're doing a good job. Ask them how they're doing, because a lot of them right now, are struggling. I think so. I think, pay, it is what it is. It's going to be what it is. But I think that additional support from the district office is something. I think everything Chris said is right. Hearing more from the district every day, there's something new coming down the pipeline, for them. We were talking about it a little earlier with in regards to attendance. Something else that the teachers need to, or is added to their plate. Not only are they teaching, but they're also safety officers in the classroom. They are mental health professionals in the classroom. Sometimes they feed, sometimes they clothe the children that are coming into their classroom, outside of making sure that they're getting to the classroom. And so we ask a lot of our teachers. And I think that some of their requests are just simply help. You don't need to pay me more, just give me some help, whether that is with additional instruction on the new systems coming down the pipeline, whether it's, iReady or with standards reference grading or whatever it is, just provide those additional resources. We had Wednesday was a professional development day for our teachers. And I think they got about half of it, I think was good. About half of the stuff that I heard was really good. The other half was, what are we doing here? Let's get them what they need. Let's ask them what they need. Talk to them, sit down, having a lot's been talked about having a teacher advisory or a parental advisory council for the board office. Having a teacher advisory council, actually sitting down and listening and hearing what they're saying, going to the buildings, seeing what they're working with, that's going to help give them that support that they want.
Well, thank you. And if there are other questions, it's possible that our speakers might be able to stick around after our meeting is over, but you're not required to do so. So you could ask questions. But first, we're going to have our up to 5 minute wrap up. And let me get my timer there. 5 minutes. And last time we started with Mr. Horn, so we'll start this time with Mr. Lyman. Anything you want to say for the next 5 minutes?
Sure. Well, thank you for having us. Again, I'm glad that this technology, where would we be if this technology did not exist, to be able to do this sort of stuff. So thank you for putting this together. Thank you for having us. Thank you for inviting everyone else that has agreed to come. I think if I could summarize all of the questions, safety seems to be number one. Safety seems to be the number one priority for our schools, safety for our teachers, safety for our staff, safety for our administrators, safety for our students. A safe environment is a learning environment. If we don't have that, our teachers aren't going to be able to teach, our students aren't going to be able to learn. So I appreciate everyone bringing those questions up regarding just safe spaces, safe learning environments. I think that those outside things, I referred to them at the League of Women Voters Forum as knucklehead things that we've got to deal with from Jeff City. It's the silly little things that we've got to mess with. No one wants to do it, but we're being used as a pawn. 5th biggest school district in the state, 30 minutes north of the Capitol. We're going to be a target. We have to not welcome that, but we have to be ready for that. But we need to also start combating that. The district needs to start doing more to get ahead of some of these things and tell the state, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to alter how we prepare all of our students for life because of some backwards, antiquated way of thinking. This is our job. we're educators. We need the ability to do our job. Lastly, this has been a fun experience for me. Like I said, my wife has been teaching in the district for a long time. Me being a product of the school district, my kids being in the school district, this has been really fun and educational for me. I was lucky enough to be one of the 3 candidates to be endorsed by CMNEA, which is not our teachers union, but our bargaining unit for our teachers. That meant a lot to me. I know a lot of people look at that and say, well, that's kind of the easy ride then to this. And I haven't tried to look at it as that. I want to continue to learn. I want to continue to meet people. I want to continue to have these forums. The questions have been great. Just learning what and where people think about our district, the different ideas the different candidates are presenting, the different ideas that I've heard from folks last night at Stephen Weber's kickoff, talking to different people, hearing different ideas that they've had. It's like, man, we've got a lot of really good people out there, a lot of really good ideas. I hope that this continues. 7 candidates for 3 spots. Scary, sure, but that just means that there's a lot of people that care this much to get out and do this. And I hope that that continues. I think that that's going to continue, but we got to keep doing it after election time. After April 4th, I want to continue to see people out and advocating for teachers, advocating for students, advocating for their students. This has been, like I said, this has been fun. This has been great, super educational for me. Selfishly, it's been very educational for me, but I want to continue to do what I can to support our teachers, to support our staff, especially our in-building staff, our custodial staff, our secretaries. They run the school. Secretaries run the school. I'm sorry, principals, secretaries run the school. Our lunchroom folks, our playground supervisors. These are the folks that we need to be focusing on and helping out as well. They are the grease that keeps the school running. We need to continue to celebrate our town's diversity. Our schools need to continue to do that. Just keep doing what, if any of you are doing anything outside of this, just keep doing it. Keep helping out, keep raising those questions, keep bringing those concerns to the district. A lot of really good people in this town. And I think we're moving forward, and we're going to do it together to prepare all of our students for life. Thank you again. It's sunny outside. I don't know what the temperature is, but let's try to get outside and have some fun today. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. All right, Mr. Horn.
Thank you all for having us. And I appreciate the questions as well. It's always good when we've got folks that are engaged in these civic processes and come with really good questions to figure out where we stand on particular things. So again, I just appreciate the opportunity. I had a conversation last night. I too was there with John at Weber's kickoff. I had a conversation with somebody who I met for the first time. And she said, I don't have any kids in the school district, but I've heard about your name for somebody I trust, and I want to vote for you. I said, well, I got a challenge for you. Even though you don't have kids, you are a stakeholder. You are vested in Columbia Public Schools. If nothing else, just take a look at your tax bill and look where most of that tax money is going. And so, I share that story to say we need more folks to be not only engaged in and around April or November, but we need folks to be engaged at all times. And specific to Columbia Public Schools and specific to the board needs it. I think if we took a poll and we asked the question, who is accountable for what in Columbia Public Schools, I think the answer would be all over the place. And that's a board function. The board needs to be able to clearly communicate to the community what they're responsible for and what they're accountable for, and what the superintendent is subsequently accountable for. And we're missing that right now. And so, when I talk about governance, when I talk about the importance of it, what I'm talking about is the board recognizing and acknowledging that there are 2 big circles. There's a circle of concern, which is everything in this district and everything that this district impacts. We're concerned about that. And there's a circle of responsibility. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. We're concerned about everything that happens here. But we do it sometimes at the sacrifice of the responsibilities that we were elected to do. To give another kind of word picture of that, what we heard in our special education audit was we've got educators who care about our kids so much, particularly our kids that come from harder backgrounds, or underserved kids. They care about them so much that they lower their expectations. So that's an educator that's concerned about what's going on in that kid's household, as they should be, but they're concerned so much that they're leaving behind their responsibility to hold a high expectation for that kid and educate. And so that's happening in our classrooms, and carry that forward. That's what's happening on the board. So when we do that as a board, it opens up the door for those things to continue in our classroom. And so that is why I'm pushing the importance of board governance, and pushing the importance of being able to the board to work on that going forward, because it's critically important. And I'm not talking about, the policies, the finances, the long range. Those are responsibilities as well, but we need to have structures in place so that we can meaningfully engage in the community. One of the things that I've been a self-critique about in our board is, John mentioned in his closing statement and earlier too, it's important that we're out and about, but we have to do that in a structured way that furthers the interests of this district. We don't have that. I'm talking about building bridges with stakeholders both in Columbia and abroad. And so that when something happens in Columbia that maybe is not positive, we can pick up a phone, or somebody can pick up a phone or send an email and say, hey, what's going on? And we can communicate and dialogue. And we need to do these things proactively. All these fall under the purview and the responsibilities of the board. And we need to execute those in a manner that suggests that it's clear that we're putting the interests of the district above our own, and that it becomes clear in our community, well, that's a board thing, that's a superintendent thing. And so I think that the continuity and the stability are important. When I talk about stability, I'm talking about you're always going to know how I'm going to respond to issues that come in front of us. I'm going to respond to them with nuance. I'm going to respond to them with focus, and I'm going to listen to feedback from our fellow board members, from educators, from administrators, from community members, whomever I need to get in contact with to make sure I can best understand what's in front of us. And I think that we need to ask that of all of our candidates, anybody that you're going to elect. Schoolboard.ChrisHorn.com is the website. My phone number's on there, my email's on there. I'm stealing John's thing because he says all the time it's true. You call my cell phone, you're gonna get me. You didn't do it, John, so I'm doing it. John's the same way. And so I appreciate this opportunity to sit down and meet with folks, and I wish you guys all the best, and as you think about who you're going to vote for in April.
Okay, thank you very much for your participation and what you've done. And I will turn this back to Sarah to preside.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris and John, for taking the time to speak with us today. If you're a member, if you could please stick around if you can, we have something we need to vote on. We will have a recording, as mentioned previously, of the speaker portion of this meeting up on the Muleskinners website later today. That's posted in the chat if you need the link.